Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Two internet giants, Google and Facebook, have announced they are cracking down on so-called fake news. They say they'll target advertising, making sure that phony content providers can't make money from stories that simply aren't true. It comes after a number of sites were blamed for promoting misleading stories in the run-up to the US election. But will this move make any difference? Matt Chorley is the editor of the Times Red Box, joins us now. Love the Times Red Box, get it delivered to my email every morning. Hopefully lots of our viewers do as well. That's enough of a puff for you, thank you.
That's enough.
That's enough. Talk to me about fake news and what it is and what we can do about it.
So part of the problem is in the old days, if you like, of newspapers, somebody would have gone into a shop and they buy a newspaper and they take it home and read it, and they know that they're buying a source of information that to some extent they can trust. It's the same if they put the TV on, they watch Sky News, they know what Sky News is all about. The issue is that if you're reading news on Facebook, you're quite often just reading it on Facebook. It might be a headline or a picture, or you don't always click on the link and land on what might look like a slightly dubious website. So what happens is somebody creates some fake news about, it could be a political opponent, so you try to smear them, or it could be somebody, so there's a famous one which did the rounds that Pope Francis had backed Donald Trump. Seems unlikely, but it crops up in your Facebook feed alongside people's holiday photos and links from newspapers and TV channels and that sort of thing, and suddenly that looks like it's real news, and then people repeat it and they like it and they repost it. And the difference between Facebook and Twitter is that Facebook has loads more users, but things linger, and the more they're liked and shared, the more they linger on people's timelines, and people think that Facebook is a big trusted brand, and so that they start to trust the things that appear on there. And part of the problem is that people can't always quite tell the difference between what is real and what is fake news, particularly at a time where, Donald Trump's campaign, sometimes it was difficult to tell what was the real things he'd said and what was the things that might have been made up. And because people then only follow sources of information which they already agree with, it becomes a sort of echo chamber, and a picture begins to build up in their minds, which might be almost entirely false, but built up through things which appear on Facebook. And there's a problem for Facebook because people want to feel like they can trust what is appearing on there. It's also a problem for the political system and for democracy if people are essentially going to the polls based on weeks and months of forming an impression of something which just isn't the case.
Except, shouldn't you go to a trusted source, and if it's not a trusted source, then why would you believe it? Or is that just a journalistic thing to do?
I think you and I might say that, Kay. I would say that you should turn to the Times, and then you would say that people should turn to Sky News. Part of the problem is that the Times and Sky News are also on Facebook, and that's how some people get their news from those sources. And so, because the Times and Sky News and other well-known media sources are appearing in people's timelines, then when another story which might appear from a website with a similar-sounding name, or a foreign-sounding website that maybe you don't know whether or not it's genuine or not, it all just appears in the feed, and it creates an impression over time that I think can skew people. And I've been caught out with it. I've found myself having believed something which then turns out was another one of these fake stories. So I think it is a problem.
Which one?
There was the one about the quote from Donald Trump and him supposedly telling the People magazine in the 80s or something that if he was ever going to run for president, he'd run for the Republicans because they're all stupid. The first time I saw that sort of sounded like the sort of mad thing he might have said at some point. Turns out that one's not true. There were other bits. The video clip of The Simpsons where Donald Trump is going down a escalator and waving, and there's almost exactly the same thing happening in real life. Apparently that's not true either. That's a slightly manipulated thing. So. That's because if you're living your life on Facebook and you're looking at your mates' holiday photos and all that sort of thing, and these sorts of things crop up, you don't spend a lot of time trying to second guess whether or not it's true. And I think it is a problem. And Facebook's issue is that in the past they used to have real life people choosing what was trending and popular stories and that sort of thing. There was a complaint then that it was a bit too lefty and it was too much reflecting the views of the people doing the work. So now they just let algorithms and computers do it. And the trouble with that is just the more popular the thing is, the further up the page it appears. And of course the problem with that is that people could just all be sharing something which just isn't true.
Yeah, the one that got me actually was do you remember the European one where the guy with the bad teeth and the sweater on, and he was on the chat show and he was supposed to be reacting after Brexit? Have you seen that one?
Yes, I have seen that one. Yeah.
And I thought that was real to start with, but then I'm a numpty. It has been said before. So what do we do? How do we make sure, not just as journalists, but as people watching this afternoon, what do we do, apart from this advertising that we've heard from Facebook and also from Google, and perhaps limiting that? What do we need to do? How can we check whether news is accurate or not?
Well, I mean, I would say, check if you think you see something on a website which, you might have your doubts about, then, ideally you would go and check from a trusted source. So you'd go to Sky or the BBC or the Times or, whichever is your particular favourite newspaper. In reality, most people are just flicking through, want to know what they're doing on a Saturday night on Facebook. They're not going to do that. So I think it is a problem, and it is, Facebook like to say they're a technology company, not a media company, but they're wielding far more influence over people than lots of other more traditional forms of media, particularly individual newspapers or TV shows and that sort of thing, because they're so much a part of people's lives. They wake up in the morning, they check Facebook, they go check it before they go to bed. So I think they do have a responsibility. I think the problem is there becomes a grey area then about what is just not true and what is a scoop of interpretation or a particular newspaper's view of a speech or how it's being delivered or the truthfulness of it. And then it becomes very difficult, I think, for somebody at Facebook to sort of police. Well, is that really what they said? Is that really what happened? Downing Street are denying it. So is that true or is it fake news? And I think that then becomes a real grey area. I think the reality is people should not just get their news from one source. If you start doing that, they become completely blinkered. And I think if the only place you're seeing news is on Facebook, then that's probably a problem.
You were doing so well until you mentioned our broadcasting competitors. Time for you to go.
I did it, and I suddenly thought I was going to get.
Yeah, you did it though, didn't you? You did it. You were working as a waitress in a cocktail bar when I met you. Look at you now. We'll speak to you soon. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
I've been getting away